The American middle class isn't just struggling, it's disappearing. That's not a dramatic YouTube claim. It's a direct quote from economic researchers who've been tracking this trend for decades. And the data shows this process is accelerating toward what many are calling a breaking point in 2025. If you're feeling the financial pressure already, you're not imagining things. Today, I'm going beyond just explaining the problem and giving you 3 practical, actionable strategies you can implement right now to protect yourself. While I can't promise these will make you rich, I can show you exactly how they're helping thousands of people just like you maintain stability in increasingly unstable times. The shrinking middle, a startling reality. Think about this. What if I told you the middle class is vanishing right before our eyes? It's not just a catchy headline, it's a startling reality backed by troubling data. When we look at how the middle class has changed over time, the numbers paint a worrying picture. In 1971, 61% of adults lived in middle-income households. Today, it's only 50%. That's not just a small decline. It represents millions of Americans who no longer fall into what we traditionally consider middle class. But this isn't just about cold statistics and percentages. It's about real people, real families, and real struggles happening in communities across the country. Take Sarah, for example. She's been teaching for over a decade with a master's degree in education. A few years ago, she felt comfortably middle class, able to pay her bills, save a little, and occasionally treat herself to a weekend getaway. Now, she's picking up weekend tutoring gigs just to keep up with rising costs. Her salary hasn't kept pace with inflation, and what once felt like financial security has turned into a month-to-month balancing act. Sarah's story isn't unusual. According to recent research, middle-income Americans are increasingly finding themselves in a selective recession. While the economy might look good on paper, many middle-class families are watching their savings dwindle as prices continue to climb. JP Morgan analysts have noted that low to middle-income consumers face diminishing savings alongside rising costs, a combination that's putting extraordinary pressure on household finances. The truth is, being middle class today doesn't mean what it used to. Columbia Business School professor Brett House points out that many middle-class individuals simply aren't in their ideal financial circumstances anymore. The rising cost of living and higher interest rates have hit this group particularly hard, creating a financial squeeze that's becoming increasingly difficult to escape. What's especially concerning is how middle-income consumers are changing their behavior. Reports from Morning Consult reveal that middle-income consumer sentiment has significantly deteriorated, with many now behaving more like lower-income consumers. Think about that. People who once enjoyed financial flexibility are now making the same tough choices typically associated with living paycheck to paycheck. This isn't a temporary blip, either. The Economic Policy Institute found that median income for middle-class households fell by nearly 5% between 2000 and 2014. Even more alarming, their median wealth declined by 28% after the housing market crisis. These aren't small adjustments. They represent a fundamental shift in economic stability for a huge portion of Americans. Here's the kicker. This trend is accelerating, heading toward what many economists fear could be a potential crisis in 2025. Predictions suggest middle-income Americans will continue facing inflationary pressures alongside a tightening job market, a combination that could push many families over the financial edge. With 85% of self-described middle-class adults already saying it's more difficult to maintain their standard of living compared to a decade ago, the outlook appears increasingly challenging. The disappearing middle class isn't just bad news for those directly affected. It represents a fundamental restructuring of our economy. When the middle class shrinks, we typically see greater economic inequality, reduced consumer spending, and less economic mobility. These changes don't just impact individual families. They reshape entire communities and alter the economic landscape of the country. The purchasing power problem. This economic reshaping isn't just happening at the macro level. It's playing out in your wallet every single day. Ever wonder why your paycheck feels smaller than your parents' did, even though the number might be bigger? The truth is shocking. Millennials and Gen Z have 86% less purchasing power than baby boomers did when they were in their 20s. That's not a typo. We're talking about a dramatic collapse in what your money can actually buy. Let me put this in perspective. When your parents or grandparents were starting out, In their 20s, their dollars stretched significantly further. They could afford more groceries, put gas in their cars more easily, and generally make ends meet without the constant financial anxiety many young people experience today. Think about what $100,000 could buy back in 1990. To purchase those same goods and services today, you'd need about $231,000. That's not just standard inflation. It's a massive erosion of purchasing power that's happened while wages have remained largely stagnant for many workers. The math simply doesn't add up anymore. Your parents didn't have it easy, but the financial landscape they navigated was fundamentally different. Gas prices alone tell part of the story. Young adults today pay nearly 40% to 60% more for gas than baby boomers did in their 20s. That extra cost comes straight out of your budget every week, creating a constant drain on finances that previous generations didn't face. This isn't just about luxury items or occasional splurges. We're talking about essential everyday purchases that take a much bigger bite out of your income. Groceries, utilities, car repairs. These necessities demand a larger percentage of your paycheck than they did for previous generations. The wage situation makes everything worse. While costs have soared, paychecks haven't kept pace. According to a Bankrate survey, 59% of workers felt their income wasn't keeping up with rising household expenses over the past year. And that includes half of people who actually received raises. Getting a pay bump doesn't help much when the cost of living is climbing even faster. College education costs highlight this generational divide perfectly. The average tuition at four-year institutions has more than doubled over the past 30 years. This isn't a small increase. It's a seismic shift in what higher education costs. And the impact doesn't end at graduation. The average student loan balance has tripled since the 1990s, with 7% of borrowers now owing more than $100,000 in education debt. This creates a financial treadmill effect for many young adults. You work harder, maybe get promotions and raises, but somehow never seem to get ahead. Your parents might have been able to buy a home, start a family, and save for retirement in their 20s and 30s. Today, many young professionals find themselves postponing those milestones indefinitely as they struggle just to stay afloat. Let's be clear, this isn't about young people making poor financial choices or spending too much on avocado toast and streaming services. This is about a fundamental shift in the economic reality facing different generations. When nearly everything costs more but wages haven't kept pace, the math simply doesn't work in your favor. The declining purchasing power connects directly to what we've seen happening with the middle class. As dollars buy less and opportunities for financial advancement narrow, more people find themselves struggling to maintain what was once considered a standard middle-class lifestyle. This declining purchasing power is both a symptom and a cause of the shrinking middle class. For many, this reality creates a constant feeling of running in place financially. You work hard, you budget carefully, you try to make smart decisions, but the economic headwinds are strong. Every trip to the grocery store or glance at your rent payment serves as a reminder that your money simply doesn't go as far as it once did. Home sweet, unaffordable home. Those economic headwinds we talked about become a full-blown financial hurricane when we look at housing costs. The American dream of homeownership isn't just getting harder to achieve. For many in our generation, it's becoming mathematically impossible. When baby boomers were buying their first homes, they faced a price-to-income ratio around 4. Today, we're looking at ratios nearly twice as high. Let's put this in perspective. Remember that charming $100,000 home your parents might have bought in 1990? That same property would cost you around $377,000 today. And here's the kicker. Wages haven't even come close to keeping up with this dramatic increase. This creates a brutal reality for today's young adults. While your grandparents could purchase a home with roughly 4 years of their income, you'd need to save every single penny for over 6 years to afford the typical American house. And that's assuming you have zero expenses during that time. No rent, no food, no student loan payments. See the problem? The math gets even more discouraging when we look at down payments. With the typical 20% down payment requirement, many young adults find themselves trapped in a cycle they can't escape. Paying high rent that prevents them from saving enough for a down payment on a home that would actually cost them less monthly than their current rent. What's particularly troubling is how this housing crisis is reshaping the middle class itself. Homeownership has historically been the primary wealth-building tool for middle-income Americans. Without this stepping stone, an entire generation is losing access to what was once considered the foundation of middle-class financial security. The effects ripple throughout the economy. When young adults can't afford homes, they delay other major life milestones, starting families, putting down roots in communities, building equity. This isn't just about houses. It's about the fundamental reshaping of what's possible for middle-class Americans. And the crisis extends beyond just the coasts or major cities. While places like San Francisco and New York have always been expensive, the affordability crisis has spread to previously accessible markets. Cities that were once affordable havens for middle-class families, places in the Midwest and South, have seen dramatic price increases that far outpace local wage growth. The Economic Policy Institute's research shows this housing affordability crisis coincides directly with the shrinking middle class. As the percentage of middle-income households has fallen from 61% to 50%, the dream of homeownership has slipped further away for many Americans. What makes this particularly difficult is that middle-income households have experienced the slowest wage growth among all income groups between 2019 and 2023. While the wealthy have seen their incomes rise significantly, and even lower-income workers have benefited from minimum wage increases in many states, those in the middle have been squeezed from both ends, watching housing costs soar while their paychecks barely budge. This creates an impossible equation for many families. The median income required to maintain a four-person household varies dramatically across the country, ranging from about $49,000 in some areas to over $106,000 in others. Yet even in regions where the required income is lower, housing costs often consume an unsustainable percentage of monthly earnings. For millions of Americans, this means making impossible choices. Do you stretch your budget to breaking point for a modest home, committing to decades of financial stress? Do you move farther from job centers, trading lower housing costs for longer commutes and higher transportation expenses? Or do you resign yourself to permanent renting, watching as a significant portion of your income goes toward building someone else's wealth rather than your own? The reality is that for many middle-class Americans, particularly younger generations, homeownership isn't just delayed, it's fundamentally redefined. The traditional path that previous generations took for granted, graduate college, get a stable job, buy a home, build equity, has been disrupted by a housing market that's increasingly disconnected from income realities. The education equation, degrees and debt. That traditional path to success we just mentioned has another major crack in its foundation. The college degree that was supposed to be your passport to the middle class? It's turned into financial quicksand for millions of Americans. Think about this. When your parents went to college, they likely graduated with manageable debt that could be paid off within a few years. Today's reality is dramatically different. The cost of education has exploded, with tuition prices at four-year institutions more than doubling over the past 3 decades. What used to be a stepping stone has become a significant financial hurdle. This shift has created an unprecedented student loan crisis in America. We're not talking about a few $billion. We're facing a collective $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. That's trillion with a T. It's a number so large it's hard to comprehend, representing millions of individual financial struggles happening across the country. Remember graduating with $10,000 in student loans back in the 90s? That seemed like a lot of money then. Fast forward to today, and the average graduate walks across the stage not just with a diploma, but with about $30,000 in debt. That's triple the financial burden in just a generation. What happened to make this situation so much worse? Part of the problem is that while education costs have skyrocketed, starting salaries haven't kept pace. Most recent graduates earn between $50,000 and $60,000 annually, a figure that hasn't changed much over the years when adjusted for inflation. Try juggling student loan payments, rent that's climbing every year, and all your other living expenses on that salary. The math simply doesn't work for many young professionals. The situation gets even more concerning when we look at those hit hardest by this crisis. Currently, about 7% of student loan borrowers owe more than $100,000. Imagine starting your career with a 6-figure debt hanging over your head. For many of these borrowers, their monthly student loan payment looks more like a mortgage payment, except they don't have a house to show for it. And here's where the traditional advice breaks down completely. We've all heard some version of go to college, get a good job. But the job market has fundamentally changed. Since 1970, the number of college graduates has increased by a staggering 250%. That's great for education levels, but it's created unprecedented competition for jobs. Today's employers can afford to be choosy, often demanding years of experience for positions that were once considered entry-level. The cruel irony? Many recent graduates can't get the experience they need because they can't get hired without experience first. It's a catch-22 that leaves many degree holders underemployed or working in fields unrelated to their studies. This mismatch between education costs and career outcomes has led to a sobering reality. Many graduates are questioning whether their degree was worth the debt it required. When you're making monthly student loan payments for 10, 15, or even 25 years, that question becomes increasingly difficult to answer positively. For some, higher education still makes financial sense, particularly in high-demand fields like engineering, healthcare, or computer science. But for many others, especially those with degrees in humanities or social sciences, the return on investment calculation has become much more complicated. What's particularly troubling is how this education debt follows graduates through their lives, affecting major financial decisions. Many millennials and Gen Z adults report delaying marriage, putting off having children, or postponing homeownership because of their student loan burden. The financial decisions made at 18 or 19 years old can end up shaping entire life trajectories in ways previous generations never experienced. This student loan crisis isn't happening in isolation. It's colliding with all the other financial pressures we've discussed: stagnant wages, diminished purchasing power, and unaffordable housing. Together, these forces create a perfect storm that's eroding middle-class financial stability from multiple directions simultaneously. The healthcare hurdle. Beyond that student loan crisis we just talked about, there's an equally devastating financial threat lurking in our healthcare system. When 59% of Americans who received raises still report their income can't keep pace with rising costs, healthcare expenses stand out as one of the most unpredictable and potentially devastating financial burdens facing middle-class families. Let's be real about what's happening. The cost of healthcare isn't just creeping up. It's skyrocketing at a pace that leaves wage growth in the dust. Think about this. While your paycheck might see a modest 2 to 3% bump each year, healthcare costs are climbing much faster. For middle-class families, this creates what experts are calling a selective recession, where your income technically grows, but your purchasing power actually shrinks because of these unavoidable expenses. Even if you have insurance, the out-of-pocket costs can be staggering. Your deductible, co-pays, co-insurance. These terms aren't just insurance jargon. They represent thousands of dollars that come directly from your pocket before your coverage kicks in. And for many middle-class families, those thousands simply aren't there to spend. The numbers tell a sobering story. The average American's personal savings rate has dropped to just 4.4%. This means most families are living paycheck to paycheck, with little buffer for unexpected medical expenses. When a health crisis hits, there's often no financial cushion to absorb the shock. Think about what happens when someone in your family needs to go to the hospital. A single emergency room visit can cost more than your monthly mortgage payment. A more serious condition requiring hospitalization? You could be looking at bills equivalent to the price of a new car, or more. And this isn't something you can simply budget for or predict. For families managing chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, or autoimmune disorders, the financial strain is constant and unrelenting. Monthly medication costs, regular specialist visits, and ongoing tests create a steady drain on family finances. These aren't luxury expenses you can cut back on. They're essential to staying alive and functioning. What makes this situation particularly cruel is the impossible choices it forces people to make. Do you fill your prescription or pay your electric bill? Schedule that follow-up appointment or make your car payment. These aren't hypothetical scenarios. They're daily realities for millions of Americans caught in the healthcare cost trap. The financial impact extends far beyond the immediate medical bills. When healthcare expenses consume an increasing portion of your income, other financial goals get pushed aside. Retirement savings get delayed. College funds for children remain unfunded. Emergency savings accounts stay empty. The ripple effects touch every aspect of financial security. Perhaps most alarming is what happens when the medical bills become too much to bear. Medical debt has become the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Think about that for a moment. More people are financially ruined by trying to pay for healthcare than by any other cause. A system designed to heal people is breaking them financially. This healthcare crisis doesn't discriminate by education level or profession. You can do everything right. Graduate college, secure a good job with benefits, save diligently, and still find yourself financially devastated by a single serious diagnosis or accident. The Columbia Business School has noted that these increasing costs of living, including healthcare, aren't being distributed equitably, putting even more pressure on middle-class households already struggling to stay afloat. The situation creates a dangerous feedback loop. As healthcare becomes less affordable, people delay seeking care for minor issues, which often develop into more serious and expensive conditions. Preventive care gets skipped, routine checkups missed, and health problems compound. The financial pressure leads to health deterioration, which in turn creates more financial pressure. For middle-class families, the healthcare system has become a constant source of anxiety. Every sniffle, pain, or symptom comes with not just health concerns but financial calculations. Can we afford to have this checked out? Becomes as important a question as, is this serious? The car payment conundrum. While we're worried about healthcare costs, there's another financial storm brewing right in your driveway. That shiny vehicle parked outside might be doing more damage to your wallet than you realize. Have you ever stopped to calculate how much of your monthly income is going toward your car payment alone? Let's take a closer look at what's happening with auto financing in America. In 2023, the average monthly car payment hit a jaw-dropping $716. That's not a typo, $716 every single month, just for the privilege of having that vehicle in your driveway. When you do the math, that works out to nearly $8,600 a year. And remember, that's just the payment itself. We're not even talking about gas, insurance, maintenance, or the inevitable repairs that pop up. What's really concerning is how we got to this point. Car prices have steadily climbed, but instead of buying less expensive vehicles, many Americans have simply extended their loan terms to keep monthly payments somewhat manageable. The average auto loan now stretches for 69 months. That's almost 6 years of payments. Think about what that means in real life. You're still making payments on a car that's lost that new car feeling years ago. By the time many people finally pay off their vehicles, they're already eyeing a replacement because the current one is showing its age or needs expensive repairs. And just like that, the cycle starts all over again. This extended payment schedule has serious consequences. When you finance a car for 6 years or more, you're likely to be underwater on the loan for much of that time, meaning you owe more than the car is actually worth. If you need to sell the vehicle, or if it gets totaled in an accident, you could find yourself still owing thousands on a car you no longer have. Interest rates make the situation even worse. With current auto loan rates sitting between 8% and 13%, the total cost of financing a vehicle has skyrocketed. That means more of your hard-earned money is going directly to the bank instead of building your wealth. All these factors have contributed to a staggering amount of auto debt across the country. Auto loan debt in the U.S. has now reached an all-time high of $1.52 trillion. Yes, that's trillion with a T. This massive debt burden is putting incredible strain on household budgets that are already stretched thin by other rising costs. We're already seeing the warning signs of trouble. The rate of auto loan delinquencies has jumped to 2.9% in the third quarter of 2024, up from 2.02% just 2 years earlier. More and more Americans are falling behind on their car payments as they struggle to balance all their financial obligations. Financial experts typically recommend keeping your monthly car payment below 10% of your gross monthly income. But with payments as high as they are now, that guideline has become increasingly difficult to follow. Someone earning $60,000 a year should ideally keep their car payment under $500 per month. But as we've seen, the average payment is now well above that threshold. For middle-class families already navigating tight budgets, these high car payments can be the difference between building savings and living paycheck to paycheck. Every dollar tied up in a depreciating asset like a car is a dollar that can't be used for building wealth, saving for education, or preparing for retirement. What makes this situation particularly problematic is how normalized these high payments have become. We've gradually accepted the idea that spending hundreds of dollars each month on a vehicle is just part of life. But if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, we can see how this acceptance is slowly eroding our financial stability. Many financial advisors now suggest considering a different approach, either buying less expensive vehicles or, if possible, paying off your car completely. Owning your vehicle outright eliminates that monthly payment entirely, freeing up hundreds of dollars each month that can be redirected toward more productive financial goals. The subscription trap. Speaking of redirecting money toward better financial goals, what if you're already losing thousands of dollars each year without even realizing it? Those small monthly subscription charges might seem insignificant compared to a car payment, but they're stealthily creating a financial leak that could be costing you the equivalent of a vacation, emergency fund, or investment opportunity every single year. Let's talk about the subscription economy, something that's transformed how we consume everything from entertainment to food. Netflix, Spotify, HelloFresh, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple Music, Stitch Fix. The list goes on and on. Each one promising convenience and value for just $9.99 or $14.99 a month. Seems reasonable for each individual service, right? But here's the thing, when you add them all up, the numbers get pretty shocking. The average American is now spending $219 every month just on subscriptions. That translates to over $2,600 a year. Think about what else you could do with that money. That's a decent emergency fund, a nice vacation, or a significant investment toward your future. What makes subscriptions particularly dangerous is how invisible they become in our financial lives. Once we sign up, these charges quietly slip from our bank accounts month after month without us having to take any action. Unlike that car payment we were just talking about, there's no monthly reminder when you sign the check. These charges just happen automatically in the background of our lives. This phenomenon has become so common that financial experts have given it a name: subscription creep. It's the gradual accumulation of small monthly charges that, before you know it, add up to a major drain on your finances. The sneaky part: most of us dramatically underestimate how much we're actually spending on subscriptions when asked to guess. What's even more telling is that a whopping 42% of consumers admit they've completely forgotten about at least one recurring subscription charge. Think about that. Nearly half of people are literally paying for things they don't even remember signing up for. Check your bank statement and credit card bills. Any surprise charges that make you say, "Oh, I still subscribe to that?" The subscription model has exploded in popularity because it's brilliant from a business perspective. Companies love the predictable revenue stream, and they're counting on you forgetting about that trial subscription that converted to a paid one after 30 days. They're banking on your inertia, the tendency to leave things as they are rather than take action to cancel. This revenue model has transformed entire industries. What used to be one-time purchases, software, movies, even razors, are now recurring monthly expenses. And this shift happened so quickly that many of us haven't adapted our budgeting habits to account for it. The real danger comes when subscription costs start eating into the money you should be saving or investing. That $15 monthly streaming service might not seem like much, but if invested instead, that same amount could grow to thousands over time thanks to compound interest. So what can you do? First, take an honest inventory. List every subscription you currently have, including those annual subscriptions that only hit once a year but still add up. Check your bank and credit card statements for the past few months to catch everything. Next, ask yourself 3 questions about each subscription. Do I regularly use this service? Does it truly add value to my life? Could I live without it? Be ruthless in your assessment. Many of us are paying for multiple streaming services with overlapping content, or subscribing to meal kits we rarely have time to prepare. Finally, consider consolidating where possible. Many subscription services offer family plans that can be shared. Others might have annual payment options that offer savings over monthly payments. Just make sure you'll use it for the full year before committing. The lifestyle inflation trap. While consolidating family subscriptions offers a smart way to trim expenses, there's another financial challenge that grows larger with each promotion you receive. Lifestyle inflation is the silent wealth destroyer that explains why even successful people with enviable salaries still worry about money. It's so pervasive that nearly 80% of American workers report living paycheck to paycheck, a statistic that includes many people earning 6 figures. Remember that exciting feeling when you got your first significant pay raise? Maybe you celebrated with a nicer apartment, upgraded your wardrobe, or started eating out more often. These small upgrades feel natural and deserved. After all, you worked hard for that money. But here's the financial trap that catches almost everyone. With each income increase, our expenses tend to expand even faster than our earnings. Think about what happens when your income jumps by $500 monthly. The responsible plan might be to invest half and enjoy the other half. But real life rarely works that way. Instead, we often find reasons to upgrade various aspects of our lives. A slightly nicer car payment, a better apartment, fancier restaurants, premium subscriptions instead of basic ones. Before you know it, that entire $500 raise has been absorbed into your regular expenses. The financial industry has a name for this pattern: lifestyle creep. It's the gradual expansion of what you consider normal spending as your income grows. That morning coffee that used to be a special treat becomes a daily necessity. The budget hotel on vacation gets replaced by luxury accommodations. Economy flights transform into premium economy or business class. Each change feels small and reasonable in the moment, but collectively they prevent wealth building. What makes lifestyle, inflation particularly sneaky, is that it doesn't feel like overspending. You're living within your means technically, just consistently at the upper limit of what your income allows. The result is a financial treadmill where you're running faster, but never getting ahead. This pattern affects people across all generations, though recent surveys show it's particularly challenging for younger adults. About 73% of millennials and 66% of Gen Zers report living paycheck to paycheck, making them especially vulnerable to financial setbacks like job loss or medical emergencies. What's most surprising is that lifestyle inflation actually intensifies at higher income levels. That six-figure salary that once seemed like the answer to all money worries comes with its own set of upgraded expectations. The modest apartment becomes a luxury condo. The reliable sedan transforms into a status symbol on wheels. Suddenly that impressive salary feels inadequate. Much of this pressure comes from our social environments and clever marketing that constantly redefines what normal spending looks like for someone at your income level. Each promotion comes with subtle pressure to signal your success through consumption. Better clothes for the office, a home in a more prestigious neighborhood, the right schools for your children. The solution isn't to avoid all lifestyle improvements as your income grows. That would make career advancement feel pointless. Instead, financial experts recommend creating deliberate rules about income increases. A common recommendation is the 50-50 rule. When you receive a raise, immediately direct 50% of it toward financial goals like retirement accounts, investment portfolios, or debt reduction, while allowing yourself to enjoy the other 50%. This balanced approach prevents the common scenario where people earn progressively higher salaries throughout their careers while their net worth barely budges. Without this discipline, you might find yourself making $150,000 a year, but still feeling financially vulnerable, with minimal savings and investments to show for your impressive income. The wealth gap widens. Beyond our personal financial choices, there's a seismic shift happening in America's wealth distribution that affects us all. The economic game has fundamentally changed, with resources increasingly flowing to those at the very top. Let me paint a picture for you. The top 1% of Americans now own more wealth than the entire middle class combined. Just let that sink in for a moment. A tiny fraction of the population controls more resources than half of all Americans. This isn't just about some people having nicer things. It's about a fundamental restructuring of economic power in our country. This concentration of wealth isn't happening by accident. Between 1993 and 2014, the top 1% captured more than half of all income growth in America. When new wealth is created in our economy, it's increasingly flowing to those who already have the most. What's happening to the middle class in the meantime? The Economic Policy Institute found that median income for middle-class households fell by nearly 5% between 2000 and 2014. Even more concerning, their median wealth declined by a staggering 28% after the housing market crisis. While the wealthy have bounced back stronger than ever, middle-class families are still struggling to recover. The post-pandemic economy has only accelerated these trends. The rich have gotten richer, while middle-income consumers have begun behaving more like lower-income consumers, cutting back, looking for deals, and stretching every dollar further. This isn't just anecdotal, it's backed by economic research. According to J.P. Morgan, by 2024, consumption in the U.S. will be dominated by high-income households. These households have enjoyed significant wealth gains in recent years, while middle-income families face increasing financial strain. This shift isn't just about statistics. It's changing the very fabric of our economy and society. Here's what makes this particularly troubling. The top 0.1% of Americans, that's just 1 in every 1,000 people, now owns as much wealth as the bottom 90% combined. That level of concentration hasn't been seen since the 1920s, right before the Great Depression. What does this mean for the average person? For one, it means decreased economic mobility. When wealth is concentrated at the top, it becomes harder for others to climb the economic ladder. The wealthy have access to investment opportunities, tax advantages, and financial strategies that can grow their wealth exponentially. Meanwhile, many middle-class families struggle to build any significant savings at all. Economic experts point out that this isn't merely the result of invisible market forces. Many attribute the decline of the middle class to deliberate policy choices that have favored the wealthy over everyone else. Tax policies, deregulation, and the weakening of labor protections have all played a role in shifting resources upward. This transformation affects nearly every aspect of our financial lives. When middle-class incomes stagnate while costs rise, it creates a squeeze that makes it harder to save, invest, or build wealth. And without a financial cushion, any emergency, a medical bill, a car repair, a temporary job loss, can trigger a financial crisis. The wealth gap also creates a two-tiered economy, where luxury brands and discount retailers thrive, while businesses serving the middle market struggle. We're seeing this play out in real time as retailers that once catered to middle-income shoppers are either moving upscale or closing their doors. But understanding these trends is actually the first step toward protecting yourself. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to navigating this changing economic landscape. While we can't single-handedly fix systemic inequality, we can make informed decisions about our own finances. Income diversification, your financial safety net. Knowledge is important, but action is what truly shields you from economic uncertainty. Did you know that people with multiple income streams are 3 times more likely to out-earn their peers? In a world where a single paycheck feels increasingly vulnerable, creating additional money flows isn't just smart. It's becoming necessary for middle-class survival. Think about it. What would happen if your main source of income suddenly disappeared tomorrow? For most Americans living paycheck to paycheck, this scenario is terrifying. But this risk can be significantly reduced by developing multiple ways to earn money, creating a financial safety net that catches you when one income source falters. This isn't about working yourself to exhaustion with 3 different jobs. It's about strategically adding income streams that complement your existing skills and lifestyle. For example, a teacher who started tutoring students online in her spare time significantly increased her monthly income while creating a buffer against rising living costs. She didn't need to change careers or work 80-hour weeks. She simply leveraged her existing expertise in a new way. The beauty of income diversification lies in its flexibility. You might start with something small, like selling handmade items on Etsy or offering freelance services in your professional field. Many have transformed hobbies like photography or crafting into profitable side businesses, allowing them to earn extra while doing something they enjoy. The digital economy has made this easier than ever, with platforms connecting skilled individuals to clients worldwide. But side hustles are just one approach. Passive income streams, money that flows in with minimal ongoing effort, represent another powerful strategy. This could include dividend-paying stocks, real estate crowdfunding investments, or creating digital products like courses or ebooks that continue selling long after you've created them. While these options typically require upfront investment of time or money, they can generate returns for years to come. The key is starting small and being consistent. You don't need to build multiple successful businesses overnight. Even an extra $200 to $300 monthly can provide meaningful financial cushioning. That's the difference between having an emergency fund or not for many families. This shift toward income diversification isn't just a trendy financial strategy. It's a necessary adaptation to our changing economic landscape. Traditional job security is diminishing, and the statistics tell a sobering story. 73% of millennials and 66% of Gen Zers are living paycheck to paycheck. These aren't just numbers. They represent millions of hardworking Americans who could benefit tremendously from additional income streams. When you diversify your income, you're essentially creating your own personal financial insurance policy. Economic downturns, industry disruptions, or company layoffs become less threatening when your livelihood doesn't depend on a single source. You gain not just financial security, but something equally valuable, peace of mind. What's particularly encouraging about this approach is that you don't need specialized skills or significant capital to begin. The internet has democratized income opportunities, allowing people to monetize everything from their spare bedroom through Airbnb to their knowledge through online coaching. Consider which of your skills, interests, or assets could potentially generate income. Are you particularly knowledgeable about a subject that others want to learn? Do you have a spare room that could be rented? Could your writing, design, or technical abilities be offered as freelance services? The possibilities are as varied as people themselves. Remember that diversification isn't just about having multiple income streams. It's about having different types of income streams. Mix active income, requiring your direct time and effort, with passive income, continuing to pay you after the initial work is done. This creates a more robust financial foundation than simply juggling multiple jobs. Smart investing for the modern era. Balancing active and passive income streams is crucial, but growing your money through investing might seem like a game reserved for those with deep pockets. What if I told you that someone investing just $5 a week could potentially build more wealth over time than someone earning an extra $200 monthly, but keeping it in a savings account? The math behind this seemingly impossible equation reveals why investing has become essential for middle-class survival. The investing world has undergone a revolution that most people haven't noticed yet. Remember those barriers that used to keep average folks out of the investment game? They've largely disappeared. Technology has completely transformed who gets to build wealth through investing. And the gatekeepers who once required thousands just to get started are becoming a thing of the past. Think about how much the landscape has changed. Today's investing platforms have opened doors that were previously locked for many of us. You can literally start building an investment portfolio with the same amount you might spend on a morning coffee. Some modern apps let you begin with just $5, making wealth building accessible even if you don't have a lot of extra cash sitting around. What's really cool is how these platforms have simplified everything. You don't need a finance degree or a personal connection to Wall Street anymore. The interfaces are designed to be straightforward, with educational resources built right in. This means you can learn as you go, building both your knowledge and your portfolio simultaneously. The rise of micro-investing has been particularly game-changing for younger generations. These platforms let you automatically invest your spare change from everyday purchases. Buy a $3.75 coffee. Some apps will round up to $4 and invest that extra quarter. It sounds tiny, but these small amounts add up surprisingly fast, especially when they're consistent. This approach has made investing feel less intimidating and more like a natural part of daily life. For those who aren't sure where to start, low-cost index funds have become the go-to recommendation from financial experts. Instead of trying to pick individual winning stocks, which is risky even for professionals, index funds let you invest in hundreds or thousands of companies at once. This built-in diversification lowers your risk, while still giving you exposure to market growth. Plus, they typically come with much lower fees than actively managed funds, meaning more of your money stays working for you instead of paying someone else. The real magic happens when you combine these accessible tools with time. Starting early, even with modest amounts, unleashes the power of compound interest, what Einstein allegedly called the eighth wonder of the world. When you put just $50 a month into investments starting at age 25, that money can potentially grow to over $100,000 by retirement age. That's not because you contributed a ton of cash. Your actual contributions would only be $24,000 over 40 years. It's because your money has been working and multiplying for decades. I know what you might be thinking. But what about market crashes? Isn't investing risky? Yes, there's always risk involved. Markets go up and down, sometimes dramatically. But history has consistently shown that over long periods, markets trend upward. This is why consistency matters more than perfect timing. Regular investments through market ups and downs, called dollar cost averaging, can actually work in your favor, letting you buy more shares when prices are lower. The most important thing financial experts emphasize isn't how much you start with. It's that you start at all. Beginning early, even with small amounts, and maintaining consistency is the formula that leads to significant growth over time. Setting up automatic contributions to your investment accounts removes the power of mindful spending. Now that we've covered how to grow your money through investing, let's talk about the other side of the financial equation: how you spend what's left in your pocket. What if I told you that spending less doesn't have to feel like deprivation? In fact, the most financially satisfied people aren't necessarily the highest earners. They're the ones who've mastered the art of mindful spending. Think about your last 5 purchases over $50. Did they bring you genuine joy or value? Were they aligned with what matters most to you? For many of us, there's a disconnect between what we say is important and where our money actually goes. Mindful spending isn't about pinching every penny or never enjoying life. It's about becoming intentional with your purchases and aligning your spending with your personal values. When you spend according to what truly matters to you, something incredible happens. You can actually cut expenses without feeling restricted. Here's the thing: we often fall into spending habits without questioning them. We buy the same brands, pay for the same services, and make impulse purchases without thinking about whether they're adding real value to our lives. Mindful spending asks us to pause and question these automatic behaviors. For example, Jessica, a graphic designer from Portland, realized she was spending nearly $300 monthly on takeout meals she didn't even enjoy that much. By redirecting that money toward quality cooking ingredients and occasional meals at restaurants she truly loved, she not only saved money, but actually enjoyed her food more. The beauty of mindful spending is that it's completely personalized. What brings value to your life might be different from what matters to someone else. Maybe you value travel experiences over material possessions, or perhaps investing in your education brings you more satisfaction than upgrading your wardrobe. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. To practice mindful spending, start by creating a budget that reflects your values, not just basic categories. Instead of simply labeling entertainment, get specific about what kind of entertainment matters to you. Is it concerts? Books? Streaming services? When you know what you value, you can make better choices about where to cut back and where to spend freely. Another powerful technique is the 24-hour rule for non-essential purchases. If you're considering buying something that isn't a necessity, wait 24 hours before making the purchase. This cooling-off period often reveals whether you truly want the item or were just caught up in momentary desire. Many people find that regularly reviewing their spending habits can be eye-opening. Looking at your credit card statement or tracking app might reveal patterns you weren't aware of, like that gym membership you haven't used in months or subscription services you've forgotten about. Mindful spending also means prioritizing experiences over things when possible. Research consistently shows that experiences tend to provide more lasting satisfaction than material purchases. Maybe instead of upgrading your phone to the latest model, you could use that money for a weekend trip with friends or family. Setting specific financial goals can also transform your relationship with spending. When you're saving for something meaningful, whether it's a dream vacation, education, or even retirement, it becomes easier to resist impulse purchases that don't align with those bigger goals. What's particularly powerful about mindful spending is how it changes your relationship with money. Instead of seeing money as a source of stress or limitation, you begin to view it as a tool for creating the life you want. This shift in perspective can be profoundly empowering. The results speak for themselves. Studies show that people who practice mindful spending report significantly higher levels of financial satisfaction, even without increasing their income. They experience less financial anxiety and feel more in control of their money situation. The debt dilemma: strategies for freedom. The weight of debt hanging over your financial life can feel like trying to swim with a backpack full of rocks. While mindful spending helps prevent new debt, what about the balances already weighing you down? The debt situation in America is becoming increasingly concerning. Credit card delinquency rates have nearly doubled since 2022, jumping from 3.69% to 7.1%. This isn't just a statistic on a page. It represents millions of families struggling to keep their financial heads above water. Let's talk about breaking free from debt's gravitational pull. The first step might seem obvious, but it's often overlooked. you need a clear picture of your entire debt situation. This means gathering all your statements and creating a simple spreadsheet that shows every debt you have, the interest rate, minimum payment, and total balance. You'd be surprised how many people make minimum payments without understanding how much those high interest rates are actually costing them over time. Once you have that clarity, it's time to choose a strategy that works with your psychology. There are two main approaches that have proven effective for millions of people. The debt snowball method focuses on paying off your smallest debts first, regardless of interest rate. Why? Because those quick wins create momentum and motivation. Think of Lisa, who paid off her $3,000 store credit card in just 4 months using this approach. That success gave her the confidence to tackle her larger debts. The alternative is the debt avalanche method, which targets your highest interest rate debts first. This approach saves you the most money mathematically, but it might take longer to feel that first victory. Your personality and motivation style should guide which method you choose. Both work, but only if you stick with them. For many people struggling with multiple payments and high interest rates, consolidation can be a game changer. Imagine replacing 5 different credit card payments at 18 to 26% interest with a single payment at 9 to 12%. Not only does this simplify your financial life, but it can also significantly reduce the total amount you'll pay over time. Just be careful. Consolidation only works if you don't rack up new debt on those freshly paid off cards. But here's something crucial that many debt freedom programs don't emphasize enough. You need to address the root causes of why you got into debt in the first place. Was it lifestyle choices that exceeded your income? Unexpected medical bills? Lack of emergency savings? Without tackling these underlying issues, you might find yourself right back where you started, even after paying everything off. Speaking of emergencies, creating even a small emergency fund can act as a financial buffer between you and new debt. Start with just $1,000 in a separate savings account that you touch only for true emergencies. This alone can prevent many of the unexpected expenses that drive people back into debt cycles. Remember Marcus, who had accumulated $43,000 in credit card and personal loan debt. He started with the debt snowball method and built a $1,500 emergency fund simultaneously. When his car needed unexpected repairs 6 months in, he didn't have to reach for a credit card. His emergency fund covered it. Within 3 years, he was completely debt-free and had expanded his emergency fund to cover 3 months of expenses. The current economic environment makes debt freedom more urgent than ever. With rising delinquencies in both credit cards and auto loans, many middle-income Americans are feeling the squeeze from multiple directions. The average length of unemployment has increased as well, making it harder for those who lose their jobs to quickly find new positions, a dangerous situation when carrying significant debt. The most powerful aspect of following a structured debt repayment plan isn't just the mathematical advantage. It's the psychological benefit. People with a clear plan are twice as likely to actually become debt-free compared to those who make occasional extra payments without a strategy. The plan creates accountability, measurable progress, and a roadmap that keeps you moving forward even when motivation dips. Rethinking retirement, new strategies for a new economy. Getting out of debt creates breathing room in your budget, but the long-term picture of retirement is shifting dramatically beneath our feet. The strategies that worked for our parents are becoming increasingly unrealistic, which explains why younger generations are completely reimagining what their later years might look like instead of following the old work until 65 playbook. Let's be honest, the concept of traditional retirement was created in a completely different economic era. Did you know the retirement age of 65 was actually established when the average life expectancy was only 62? Think about that for a moment. The system was literally designed with the assumption that most people wouldn't live long enough to collect benefits. Today, we're facing a fundamentally different reality. We're living longer, dealing with more economic uncertainty, and navigating a rapidly changing job market. For many in the middle class, the math simply doesn't add up anymore. Saving enough to completely stop working at 65 and then potentially living for another 20 to 30 years requires an enormous nest egg that feels increasingly out of reach. This is why we're seeing the rise of movements like FIRE, financial independence, retire early. Rather than focusing on a specific age, FIRE emphasizes aggressive saving and investing with the goal of achieving financial independence as soon as possible. The core idea isn't necessarily about retiring in the traditional sense, but rather gaining the freedom to work on your own terms. For example, many FIRE followers aim to save 50 to 70% of their income, allowing them to build enough wealth to cover their basic expenses through investment returns. This approach is particularly popular among millennials and Gen Z, who are facing significant economic challenges and want more control over their future. But FIRE isn't the only alternative approach gaining traction. Many people are focusing on building passive income streams that can support them later in life. Unlike traditional retirement planning that relies primarily on a large lump sum of savings, this strategy emphasizes creating multiple sources of ongoing income: rental properties, dividend-paying investments, online businesses, or royalties. The beauty of passive income is that it addresses one of the biggest anxieties about retirement: running out of money. When you have ongoing income streams, you're less dependent on drawing down a fixed pool of savings that might not last. Phased retirement is another increasingly popular approach. Instead of an abrupt transition from full-time work to no work at all, many people are gradually reducing their work hours over several years. This approach offers both financial and psychological benefits. Financially, it allows you to continue earning income while beginning to tap into retirement benefits. Psychologically, it provides a smoother transition into this new phase of life. What all these alternative strategies have in common is flexibility, something that's essential in today's unpredictable economic landscape. The rigid retirement timeline that previous generations followed simply doesn't match the reality many of us face today. No matter which approach you choose, experts emphasize that starting early is absolutely critical. Even small amounts invested in your 20s and 30s can grow substantially over time thanks to compound growth. Being proactive becomes even more important given the uncertain economic future we face. One particularly powerful tool is creating a written retirement plan. According to research, people with a written plan are 60% more likely to feel financially prepared for retirement than those without one. There's something about putting your strategy on paper that makes it more concrete and helps you stay accountable to your goals. It's also worth remembering that retirement planning isn't just about finances. Health, purpose, and community are equally important components of a fulfilling retirement. Many people find that their retirement dreams have shifted away from simply not working toward finding meaningful ways to spend their time. Whether that's through part-time work they're passionate about, volunteering, pursuing hobbies, or spending time with family. The retirement landscape may be changing, but that doesn't mean we need to face the future with anxiety. By rethinking our approach, starting early, and staying flexible, we can create retirement strategies that align with today's economic realities and our personal values. Building your financial resilience. Retirement strategies matter, but they're only effective if you can navigate the inevitable financial surprises that happen along the way. Think of financial resilience as your economic immune system. And just like your body's defenses, it needs to be intentionally strengthened before you need it most. In a world where economic uncertainty has become our new normal, building this resilience isn't optional anymore. It's essential. What exactly is financial resilience? It's not just having some money saved up for a rainy day. It's a complete mindset shift about how you approach your finances. It's about developing habits and skills that help you bounce back when life throws those inevitable curveballs your way. Let's be honest, most of us weren't taught financial resilience growing up. We were told to get good grades, go to college, find a stable job, and everything would work out. But that's not the reality we're living in today. The economic landscape keeps shifting beneath our feet, and we need to adapt our approach accordingly. One of the first principles of financial resilience is living below your means, not just within them. There's a big difference. Living within your means ensures you're not going into debt, but living below them creates the breathing room you need to build true financial security. This doesn't mean never enjoying your money, but rather being intentional about where it goes. Think about it this way. If you're spending everything you make, you're essentially walking on a financial tightrope. One unexpected expense can send you tumbling. But if you're consistently spending less than you earn, you're creating a safety net that grows with time. A robust emergency fund is another non-negotiable component of financial resilience. Financial experts recommend having enough to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses. This fund isn't for vacations or new gadgets. It's specifically for those unexpected emergencies that would otherwise force you into debt. Think medical bills, car repairs, or surviving a job loss. Start small if you need to. Even $500 can make a difference in handling minor emergencies. Then gradually build it up over time until you reach that 3 to 6 month target. Your future self will thank you when that inevitable emergency strikes. Diversification is another key aspect of building resilience. This applies to both your income sources and your investments. The days of relying solely on a single paycheck are behind us. By developing multiple income streams, whether through side hustles, freelance work, investments, or small business ventures, you create a financial safety net that can withstand economic shifts. The same principle applies to your investments. Spreading your money across different types of assets helps protect you from market volatility. When one area of the market struggles, others might thrive, helping to balance out your overall financial picture. But financial resilience isn't just about money. It's also about constantly upgrading your skills. The job market is evolving faster than ever, and staying relevant means continuously learning and adapting. Take advantage of online courses, certifications, and other opportunities to expand your skill set. This makes you more valuable in your current role and more marketable if you need to make a change. Staying informed about economic trends is equally important. You don't need to become an economic expert, but having a basic awareness of what's happening in the economy helps you make better financial decisions. Follow reliable financial news sources and consider how larger economic trends might impact your personal situation. Building financial resilience isn't something that happens overnight. It's a gradual process that requires consistent effort and intentional decisions. But the payoff is significant. Those who develop strong financial resilience report feeling much more confident about their future, regardless of what economic challenges arise. Jessica, a marketing professional from Chicago, shared how building financial resilience changed her outlook. I used to panic whenever there was talk of layoffs or economic downturns. Now, with my emergency fund in place, multiple income streams, and an updated skill set, I feel prepared for whatever comes my way. That peace of mind is priceless. Policy solutions. Can the middle class be saved? Personal finance strategies matter, but what about the bigger economic picture? While Jessica's individual resilience has helped her weather financial storms, the disappearing middle class isn't just about personal choices. It's largely about policy decisions made over decades. And surprisingly, the solutions might require more than just better budgeting skills or investment strategies. When we zoom out from individual stories and look at the research, it becomes clear that reversing the middle class decline requires structural changes. No amount of personal finance optimization can fully overcome certain systemic barriers that have developed in our economy. Let's talk about what experts are actually proposing to rebuild the middle class. One of the most straightforward approaches is increasing the minimum wage. This isn't just about helping entry-level workers. It creates a ripple effect that can boost lower middle-class incomes across the board. Research shows these increases typically lead to more consumer spending and can actually reduce poverty rates, creating a virtuous economic cycle. Higher education reform is another critical piece of the puzzle. We've already seen how crushing student debt has become for millions of Americans. Making college more affordable isn't just about reducing individual suffering. It's about creating an educated workforce that can compete globally while maintaining financial stability. Countries with more affordable education systems tend to have stronger middle classes because their graduates enter the workforce ready to contribute without being weighed down by massive debt. Healthcare affordability represents another major policy frontier. Think about how many financial decisions are influenced by healthcare considerations, from job choices to retirement timing. Some experts suggest that implementing universal healthcare, or at least regulating drug prices, could significantly ease this burden on middle-class families. When healthcare becomes more affordable, it frees up household budgets for other priorities like saving, investing, or education. Labor protections and union support might sound like outdated concepts to some, but the research tells a different story. Countries with stronger collective bargaining rights typically have better wage growth and job security across the board. This isn't about politics. It's about recognizing that when workers have more power to negotiate, the benefits often extend throughout the economy, helping stabilize middle-class incomes during economic fluctuations. Tax policy represents another powerful lever for rebuilding the middle class. Many experts argue for more progressive taxation that ensures wealthy individuals and corporations contribute a fair share. This isn't about punishing success. It's about creating a balanced system where the tax burden doesn't fall disproportionately on middle-income families who are already struggling to maintain their standard of living. What's particularly interesting is that countries with strong middle-class supportive policies don't just have more equitable societies, they actually experience higher overall economic growth. This challenges the notion that supporting the middle class somehow harms economic performance. In fact, a robust middle class contributes to political stability and good governance, according to recent research from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Some economists are taking an even broader view. William Darity from Duke University advocates for policies that specifically empower marginalized groups, including reparations and guaranteed jobs. His research suggests these approaches could be part of a comprehensive strategy to strengthen the middle class by addressing historical injustices and creating more economic opportunities for everyone. Other systemic barriers that experts highlight include workplace discrimination and inadequate parental leave policies. Addressing these issues isn't just about fairness. It's about unlocking economic potential that benefits everyone. When more people can fully participate in the economy without artificial barriers, the middle class naturally expands. The truth is, the decline of the middle class represents a societal challenge that requires comprehensive solutions. While personal financial strategies remain important, they work best when supported by policies that create a more level playing field. Countries that maintain strong middle classes don't just have citizens who budget better. They have systems designed to support broad-based prosperity. Your action plan. Steps to take today. Waiting for policy changes isn't an option when your financial security is at stake right now. Nearly 3 out of 4 millennials and 66% of Gen Zers are currently living paycheck to paycheck. But you don't have to be one of them. While the broader economic challenges we've discussed are real, your personal journey toward financial stability can begin today, regardless of what's happening in the economy at large. Let's start with something fundamental, creating a detailed budget. I know, budgeting doesn't sound exciting, but it's like having a financial GPS. When you track where your money is coming and going, you'll quickly spot patterns and opportunities to make changes. A proper budget doesn't just show your spending. It reveals your priorities and helps identify areas where you can redirect your resources toward what truly matters. Next, consider ways to boost your income. The gig economy has created countless opportunities to earn extra cash on the side. Whether it's freelancing in your professional field, driving for a rideshare service, or selling handmade items online, even a modest side hustle generating $200 to $300 monthly can significantly improve your financial cushion. Don't underestimate the power of this additional income. It could be the difference between barely making it and starting to build wealth. Speaking of building wealth, let's talk about investing. Many people put this off, thinking they need thousands to get started. The truth is, starting small is infinitely better than not starting at all. Consider this. Contributing just $250 monthly to a retirement account could grow to approximately $94,000 over time with average market returns. Increase that to $400 monthly, and you could potentially accumulate over $1.44 million. The key isn't having huge sums to invest, it's consistency and time in the market. While you're building for tomorrow, don't forget about protecting yourself today. An emergency fund is your financial first aid kit, and even having $500 set aside can make a significant difference when unexpected expenses arise. Without this buffer, a minor car repair or medical bill often lands on high-interest credit cards, creating a debt cycle that's hard to escape. Aim eventually for 3 to 6 months of expenses, but start with whatever you can. Even $25 per paycheck adds up. Now, let's find money you might not even realize you're spending. Take a hard look at your subscriptions. The average American spends $219 monthly on various subscription services. That's over $2,600 annually potentially slipping through your fingers. From streaming services to meal kits to apps you barely use, these seemingly small charges create a significant drain on your finances. Try this. List every subscription you have and ask yourself, does this bring me value worth its cost? Be ruthless in cutting what doesn't serve you. Prioritizing these financial actions based on your personal situation matters too. If you're carrying high-interest debt, tackling that might need to come before aggressive investing. The freedom that comes from breaking free of debt payments creates more options for saving and investing later. The beauty of taking control of your finances is the immediate reduction in stress it brings. Research shows that implementing these kinds of financial changes can reduce financial stress by up to 65%, even before you've fully achieved your goals. Just knowing you're taking steps in the right direction brings a sense of empowerment that carries over into other areas of life. Remember that financial security isn't built overnight. Think of these steps as planting seeds for your future financial garden. Some will grow quickly, others take time, but consistently tending to them creates something beautiful and sustainable. The most important thing is to start now, with whatever resources you have available. Let's be honest, the American dream feels increasingly out of reach for many of us. A recent poll found that 69% of Americans believe the idea that if you work hard, you'll get ahead just isn't true anymore. That's a sobering reality. But here's what matters now. We're not helpless in the face of these economic changes. The research shows that strong middle classes create more stable societies with better educational outcomes and less crime. This isn't just about your personal finances. It's about rebuilding community strength. Change starts with each of us taking control of our financial futures. Whether it's starting that side hustle, investing your first $50, or simply tracking your spending better, every step matters. The most powerful thing about financial empowerment is that it spreads. When we support each other and share